Is Final Fantasy XIV worth playing? Well, if an estimated 40 million players are to be believed, then yes. Thanks for watching. But seriously, what makes a game or an MMO worth playing? The answer to that question really depends on what you value within a game. Do you value a good story, exploration, collectibles? MMOs in particular are a huge time investment. You're basically signing away months of your life at a time if you really want to give one a shot. So if you are looking to play one, you're going to want to take some of your time to figure out which one is going to be the best worth your time. There are so many MMOs on the market right now. I genuinely believe that we are in a golden age for the genre as a whole. But back to the matter at hand, what makes FF14 either worth playing or worth skipping? Like I mentioned earlier, it all really depends on what you personally value in an MMO. FF14 is kind of the perfect one to play if you're not a fan of the more traditional MMO genre. There's a pretty lengthy main story between all the expansions, which is quite good. So if you value a good story, then you'll probably enjoy yourself here. On the flip side, if you're all about that endgame grind, like gearing, rating, and high-end content in general, you're gonna have a pretty big hill to climb to get there. Yes, FF has all of that, but it's buried at the end of a lengthy MSQ. You could always skip the cutscenes or just buy a skip off the store. Please don't burn me, FF14 community. I like the story, please. It's long. But yeah, if you're the type of player who enjoys and values a very good, albeit slow story, then consider that FF14 probably has the best story of any game that I have personally ever played. I am not being hyperbolic, I cried. Exploration. For some people, that makes the game. For me, games like ESO and Guild Wars 2 really do make exploration fun. ESO has public dungeons, delves, and sky shards all over the map, and Guild Wars 2 has a checklist for each zone. And 14 certainly has exploration. There are aetheryte shards to collect that allow you to fly in each zone. There are vistas, which can be fun to unlock. Each one has their own puzzle that can be solved typically by using a given emote in a location. And lastly, there are world events and hunts. And these are solid. Hunts in particular are a great thing to tune out and just grind to, but it never really reaches the heights of the aforementioned two games, at least in my opinion. Again, not bad, but it's just not as compelling. And you're gonna hear me say that a lot because 14 has a lot of content, and a lot of it is great, just like the story and raids, and a lot of it is just pretty good, like the exploration and PvP. Speaking of which, let's talk about PvP. If you're the kind of player who values that in an MMO, like that is your bread and butter, yeah, look somewhere else. Okay, I kid. PvP is pretty good, but it's not great. Crystalline Conflict is fun, but you can't queue with your friends. Frontline can be fun, but the rewards for doing it are lackluster. Like, for the almost 2 years that Endwalker has been out, we've had these same PvP vendor rewards. The series rewards are pretty good. These cycle out every major patch, but some are just way better than the others. They're not really consistent. Again, that's more subjective. But at the end of the day, PvP in FF14 is good, but it's not something you'll find yourself subbing to the game for. I myself like to dip in and out when I feel the series rewards are more worth it. Speaking of rewards, one thing I personally love in any MMO are good collectibles. I am a certified mount hunter. I spent years getting mounts like Invincible, Ashes of Alar, and the Infinite Time Reaver in World of Warcraft. So coming into FF14, I was very happy to see how this game handles collectibles. There are a lot of them. There's your standard mounts, pets, and armor, which is all done very well. Each one is unique, and some are very challenging to get. Some of my favorite collectibles are the trial mounts. Every expansion has several, and if you collect them all, you get a big shiny one. It's really satisfying. It also ties itself very well to endgame content. Every Savage tier drops them out, and every ultimate has a unique weapon glamour. I won't spend too much time on endgame content yet. I will get there, but there's a lot to collect, and a lot of methods too. There are entire separate zones like Eureka and Boja, each with their own unique skills and collectibles. I myself value having all these different methods and items to collect. So if you value collectibles, you're gonna want to check out FF14. It's one thing this game does great. On a more personal note, do you know what else I value? You. That's right, you watching the video. I value you so much, and I hope you value hitting the sub button and liking the video. We recently hit 1,000 subs. Thank you, by the way. I plan on doing more streams and more long form content that I hope you're there for. Liking the video does let me know that I'm on the right track. Also, thank you to our members who help improve our content, Axiaris and Beatrich. You can become a member yourself by hitting the link below. Also join our Discord. Now back to it. Next, endgame content. You know it when you see it. We're talking raids. And we're talking more raids. That's kind of it with FF. There are endgame dungeons. These are actually a new form of content. Criterion is probably what you think of when high-end dungeon content comes to mind. It's hard, but the rewards, at least so far, are very lackluster, and a lot of the community has seemingly abandoned this form of content. It's still new though. We'll be getting a third one in the next patch, so I'll hold off on elaborating. Things can change in a dime. I'm not too worried about it. Yes, you do have normal dungeons, but these are reserved for either your first time through with the story or roulettes. They're not very challenging and very formulaic. Not bad, but not exciting either. Now, if you like raiding, or at least the idea of it, yeah, that's a pretty exciting content. There's normal difficulty. This one you can get done in 10 minutes. There's extreme, which is reserved for trials. These are fun to dip in and out of for mounts. Savage is the next up from normal. This one you're going to want to find some friends for. Savage is the difficulty that probably comes to mind if you're a heroic or mythic raider in World of Warcraft. And Ultimates is something I consider more unique to FF. These are around 15+ minute fights with multiple bosses and no breaks, except DSR. This content is for the best of the best players, hence why I haven't done it yet. But still, even if you're not sure if you could do it, the mere thought of being able to do it and seeing people in public with those weapons is something that I personally value in an MMO. Having that high bar to climb really adds something for me. And the last topic I want to cover is more broad. We'll just call it miscellaneous. Things like player housing. If that's something you enjoy, then hey, go for it. I've seen some pretty wild creations. My FC house is pretty crazy in itself. Crafting and gathering is also pretty extensive in this game. There's tons of skills to unlock, quests to do, and money to be made. Definitely something like hunts where you can just zone out to some Netflix and make some gil. Lastly, there's the Island Sanctuary, a new feature in Endwalker. It's a very light version of Harvest Moon. Again, this is one of those things where you're either into it or you're not. I myself am fairly indifferent to it. But yeah, those are all of the things that either make FF14 worth playing or worth skipping. So what's the takeaway? Final Fantasy XIV is the Swiss Army knife of MMOs. It has everything. It has story, PvP, raids, dungeon, etc. But if it's not doing something great, like the story or raids, it's just kind of okay. I feel like FF14 is the jack of all trades, master of none MMO, which for me, and maybe even you, is perfect. There was a time where I would consider that sole thing I value in an MMO to be that endgame content. Mythic raiding, Mythic Plus, high parses, top of the meters. But honestly, recently, I kind of just like goofing off, but I also like having the option to do things like exploration and PvP as well, and I still raid too. It doesn't have to be the best, but if I can scratch that itch with one game and then some, then that makes FF14 worth playing. And I hope that this helped you find out if it's worth it for you or not. Oh, and subscribe.